Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the Children's Services Overview Scrutiny Committee on 12th of January. The meeting is being broadcast live online. And then I don't believe we've got any questions from the public, town or parishes or councillors. Is that correct? Yes. In which case we'll move on to item 58, which is the exec member update. So over to Prue.
Gosh, let Moses get sat down. Right. Good evening, everybody. There's two things that I particularly want to talk about, and then there's a third thing that I don't particularly want to talk about. The first thing is to congratulate our Prevention and Youth Justice team on being mentioned in the latest national bulletin from the Youth Justice Board for their excellent, that's the word they used in the bulletin, for their excellent work on supporting children at risk of exclusion and crime before their behaviours escalate. So that's really good. And the second thing is that shortly before Christmas, the government made an announcement about the new Send Free schools. And we're still on the list to get 2 schools, we were told we will get, which is good news because a number of the schools were scrapped. But the government has offered us a different set of options. So we could still have the 2 schools if we want them, or they will give us money, just over £6 million per school. And you can mix and match, so you can have one school and take the money for the other one. The money that they're offering per school is not enough to replace the cost of building a school, but on the other hand, they have produced a timetable of how the money would be handed over in tranches over several years. But if we opt to have the schools, which they would still insist on building for us, it's not clear how soon that would happen. And we've been unable to get a firm answer as to when it would. So at the moment, officers are engaged in weighing up the advantages and disadvantages and producing a business case for what the best thing to do is. And because of the delays that we had already had in the schools, they had already started work on thinking how to cope with the fact that we might not get them. So there's some thinking already gone on before we reach this point. But clearly this does require some careful thought. So I think one of the main considerations is what we can do that will best support the maximum number of children. We also have to make sure whatever additional places we provide helps reduce the financial pressure on the DSG. And we have to consider, because of when the decision has to be made, any potential implications for the capital programme, which will be agreed as part of the budget in February. And we have to make sure we are working with the Ascendancy Trust, because they are the trust, that's Addington School for most people who in this room. They were the trust that were appointed by the previous government to run the 2 free schools. So it will affect them quite a lot, whatever decision we make. So we must stay in partnership with them and make sure that everybody's interest is taken into account. Government want a response from us by the end of February. It's obviously that will be after we've set our budget. So it's a little bit too early at the moment to say what we're going to do, but it will be coming out obviously before the budget. And I'm happy to take questions on that. And then the third thing I think I will leave to Ming and Emma to discuss later on in the meeting, or now even.
Thank you, Prue, thank you, Chair. Just to let everybody be aware that this morning we received our area send inspection call from Ofsted and CQC. So just the inspection itself sort of starts with immediate effect, and a number of submissions need to be made inside of the next 24 hours and to the end of this week. And then it's a 3-week inspection. So this week is largely submissions of information that are referred to as Annex A, and children will be selected for inspectors to track in terms of progress throughout the inspection, and we will be in contact with those families and those children and young people to notify them. The inspectors will be on site from the 26th of January, and the inspection will close on the 30th, Friday the 30th of January. What's really key is that a survey will be is in the process of being circulated from Ofsted, and is an opportunity for parents and young people and children and carers, as well as partners and interested stakeholders, to be able to feed back, and we will be circulating that survey and the link to that survey via a number of channels to make sure that we get as broad a level of feedback for Ofsted to inform the inspection from the community and from practitioners. And that survey will close on Tuesday the 20th of January in preparation, so that they can collate the results, and that will inform kind of key lines of inquiry and further scrutiny. It is a joint area inspection, so whilst the local authority has a lot of heavy lifting to do, we are joined in that by our health colleagues, both ICB and providers, and to reassure if colleagues within education establishments are contacted for visits, that inspectors won't be inspecting them, they are inspecting local area arrangements. So yeah, and of course we will be bringing the outcome of the inspection and any feedback to overview and scrutiny to share.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Emma or Prue on these? Yeah.
Not a question, just if you can pass on best wishes to your team, and know we'll be thinking of you.
Thank you.
I just one quick one for Prue, and it might be something that will come up a little bit another time, but just in terms of, just wanted to ask about some of these timelines. So you said the government wants a response by February on some of these things.
End of February.
So
yes.
Is that when we have to make a final decision, or is that just initial
we,
plans?
we will be having to make a final decision effectively in the budget.
Okay.
Because it's going, whatever we decide is likely to affect the capital programme, so it will be part of the corporation. So if we do switch away from having 2 free schools, we will require an executive decision, because it was an executive decision to have them. So it will all be done as part of the budget process. There will be more news trickling out as time goes on, as we get nearer to a decision point.
And is the idea with the 6 million, if it's not used for a school, that it might be used for hubs or centre hubs?
Or resource units, or some other way of delivering the education? Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think you were fairly clear, Prue, basically, in that if you decide to stay with the schools, they've not put a firm time frame on it. Have they even give you any kind of indication?
They haven't given us an indication. They've given another authority an indication of possibly 2035. Yes, which is not within the lifespan of this government, and therefore, yes, who knows? So I think you can see what we're thinking. It's just making sure we've got the right combination of answers, and that what we do actually delivers as much as possible with the money that they're giving us. I have to say officers have got quite a lot of good ideas, and they will come out in some point, probably at some point in February.
Question I have to you said that you can't mix and match.
You can.
You can mix and match. Okay. So you can also take the money, and also you can also wait for the schools to be built by the government.
We could either take one school and the money for the other school, or take both schools or no schools and just take money.
Mm-hmm.
But as I say, the money is not enough to build a school, but it's a considerable slug of capital.
So I don't know whether this is pro or Emma that will answer, and maybe down the road. Is it fair to say that whatever option we pursue, this blows a gap on the SEND sufficiency statement?
No, well, not really. I think we already have. If you've read the statement, you realise that we know what we need, and we're already saying we don't have the funds to do everything that we need, and we'll work towards it. That is already kind of in the background, thinking we haven't got the schools yet, we don't know when we're going to get them, and trying to work out how to plug that gap. So this would actually probably help the SEND sufficiency statement rather than make things worse. That makes sense. I mean, if you assumed we were going to get the SEND schools by the time they should have been delivered, it will be a different proposition to where we are now. And because we already had a gap because they weren't going to be delivered, we've been working towards filling that gap. We do not have enough capital to do absolutely everything that we need to do in order to have complete sufficiency locally. It's just not possible, but we can get quite a long way towards it.
The impression I had previously was, with or without the 2 free schools, there will still be a shortfall. Yeah. So how does not having these 2 free schools make the situation better? Because
we didn't know when we were going to get them, and so we've got a long time frame of potentially having a hole. Whereas if we take money, we could fill that hole more quickly and get the provision actually going. But we haven't got our own capital to do that with.
And I think you mentioned it a bit before, there is a clearer time frame, is there, for when the money would be given?
An officer will shout at me if I get this wrong, but I think it's 3 tranches starting in the summer. Yep.
Thank you very much for that update, and thank you for being here when you've got so much to turn around with Ofsted as well. It's very much appreciated, and I appreciate how busy it's going to be over the next 24 hours, but also 3 weeks. So good, yeah, hopefully it all goes smoothly. So thank you for the executive update, and I'm sure we'll look forward to updates on what happens with that in future meetings as well. So we'll move on now to the next item, which is the career development workforce retention. Estelle.
Yeah, so you will have the report in your packs. I'll assume that that you've read the reports, but essentially it's setting out the work that we have done and continue to do to support recruitment and retention of social workers. You'll know about the kind of national problem with recruiting social workers, and over years that kind of over-reliance on agency staff, which for children really is not the greatest, as agency staff tend not to stay as long, children experience more social workers, etc. So we've continued to do a lot of work. Our ASYE programme has, for a long time actually, been really well thought of, and we've further developed that in the last couple of years. We typically get about 50 applications each year. We recruit between 8 and 12 newly qualified social workers each year. In the last 3 years, we've retained 78% of social workers who started with us as newly qualified social workers, which is really good. And a number of social workers who started with us have progressed to senior roles. The report kind of sets out some of the feedback we've had from our ASYEs. We've also partnered with what initially was Frontline, is now known as Approach Social Work, and that's a fast-track graduate programme for social workers. We recruited 3 students last year through that programme who've gone on to take permanent jobs with us, and we've recruited another 5 this year. We've also got 4 social work apprentices, so that they are really experienced practitioners who've been working in for a long time, who we've now supported into apprenticeships, so they'll be joining our newly qualified cohort later in the year. And we also take in students from other universities that we've partnered with, offering our social workers, as part of that kind of retention and development, the opportunity to be practice through reform, through our Helping Early strategy, which we hope will reduce the need for those temporary posts, as we will be helping children much earlier. But actually the number of agency workers covering permanent vacancies has significantly reduced, as the green bar shows in the chart. And part of that kind of retention is really also linked to our progression policy. So we have a progression panel for social workers as they gain more experience. We've had 10 social workers that have gone through that progression panel in the last year, and we've retained all of those social workers who've also then gone on to more senior roles. And a key part of that retention as well is linked to the learning and development culture that we've really developed as well over the last couple of years. Our learning and development offer, our systemic practice model, which is really well thought of, and it lists some of the social work training that we provide our social workers once they're in post, but also looking at that kind of whole learning loop, the practice weeks that we run twice a year, practice forums that we run for practitioners, things like the space to talk about race groups that have just started, the systemic ideas groups, which are very much social work led groups, which are really doing a lot to support that kind of learning culture, development culture for social workers. So looking forward to 2026, we've obviously got the reform agenda, which we'll touch on a bit later, but a lot of work is focused in the academy now on supporting some of the changes that social workers are going to have through the change to our delivery model. We're implementing cultural awareness training and disproportionality for our senior leadership group. We've also got Jenny Malloy working with us at the moment, who proudly identifies as a care leaver. and she's delivering 4 distinct skills-based training courses. And also, starting with children's social care, we'll be delivering the total respect, so understanding experiences of looked after children, and that's going to be delivered by our participation team and our care experience facilitators. And work is underway to develop the Workforce Academy website, which will be a real kind of learning hub as well and resource for our across the workforce in children's services. I don't know if there's any questions anybody has.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, for me, reading this report, it was really encouraging to see the amount of things you're doing to develop and actually grow staff, basically, because that's really important, whatever you're doing, whatever kind of line of work you're in. My question was actually related to a separate email I'd sent to Emma, which she's responded to today, which was about why people move on. And the biggest reason, well, there were 2 points. Something like 55–60% of people, you don't know why they're leaving. Now, and it refers to something, I think it's a BWO database, if you could perhaps explain what that was. And the second thing was the highest figure with a known reason was people leaving for career progression. And it's not a big number, it's only because of the size of the sample small, so it may not be indicative, but is there anything more we could do there, basically, to encourage people to think, I might just hang on 6–12 months to see what opportunities it may open up for me?
Thanks, Charles. So in response to your first part of your question, BWO is the HR system. So that kind of monitors absence, expenses, kind of all of those aspects, and so I think that there is some development that we need to do in terms of making sure that we've got kind of capture, and we also our conversation with our principal social worker around learning from exit interviews, but also learning from interviews with staff who stay as well. So in terms of the reasons why. So I think the recording of people's reasons for departure are key. And as you mentioned, the second highest stat does relate to people who have moved on for career progression. And that although it's bittersweet in terms of losing people, it is actually, we would view it as a success in terms of people being able to move on for careers and positions, more senior positions elsewhere. What we do know is that we also have people returning to the local authority and returning to roles that we put out for advert that are more senior than the ones in terms of which they departed for. We have just the application process for the principal social worker role closed yesterday, and we've got 32 applicants, which is a very good problem to have, really, in terms of so that I think that's an indication. You will be aware through Estelle's other report that she will talk to about the Families First partnership reforms, children's social care reforms, which is providing us some opportunity to look at have we got sufficient leadership capacity, have we got kind of those opportunities for practitioners to step into their first management role, and that to feel safe and them to be nurtured and developed in those roles, because it is a different skill set from going from a senior social worker to your first management position, and that's part of the analysis that we've looked at in terms of our current system. The leap from being practitioner to your first management role is quite significant. So how we create a bit more of a step to support people. So again, to support that retention, that development. So there will be further opportunities, and we are looking internally at our talent prior to going external in relation to that.
Yeah, thank you. Just one really brief thing off that next time this report comes to this committee, can we have this chart in there in full? Because it's quite interesting to see. And I take on board everything you've said, which all sounds very positive.
Yeah, so I just had a couple of observations and then a question. Practice Week, I think, is brilliant. To devote a week to self-reflection and learning, I think, is a really strong message. I got a sense of real momentum from the report, and we feel like we're in a much stronger place, and that's good. Jenny Malloy, I had the privilege of meeting her over Christmas, and what a woman. I'm wondering, this training probably wouldn't be appropriate for us, but whether she could run a counsellor session around care leave. Oh, okay, sorry. Am I stealing your thunder?
There's a spoiler alert, so
oh, sorry. Rewind. I didn't ask that question. And then and this is a tough question, and you did kind of answer it, but the locums, I read about that, and how realistic are we that they will be temporary? Because the population's going up, complexity of needs going up, and we've got this great team in place, but then when we look at the dashboards, we've still got issues around timeliness. And and we know we're not ever going to have it, if we had a bigger budget, we'd be pushing for more permanent team members. I ask for worry about caseloads and manageable caseloads, how realistic it is.
I mean, I think that is something that we are keeping really close tabs on and monitoring really closely. But I think it's about where we might want the practitioners within our whole system. And I think what we're working towards is having less invasive, intrusive work in children's lives if we can provide that help much earlier. So I think that's the reason why we would want to keep those roles as temporary, with a view to hopefully we will be weighting it much more at the helping early stage, where we would have a different kind of practitioner supporting.
And we are aware that over the last sort of 12 months we've been undertaking kind of needs analysis, looking at our current data, historic data, performance data, that's all informed the Families First Partnership Plan in terms of implementation. And it will mean, because what we've been able to establish is that it's more than just a blip in terms of that increased need, but that we need, families need other avenues to access support, so that their only recourse isn't just a statutory social work service in terms of support. So it's linked to the development of our family hubs, creating a system of support and access to services prior to needs escalating wherever possible. But part of the plan is an increase in a slight increase in headcount, because our working kind of principle has been that we must make sure that there are manageable and safe caseloads, and in terms of whether we've been looking at where we can potentially recycle resource in order to support, recognising that with this change, or with any change, you need to put more resource in usually at the outset, and then kind of can review the impact of those changes as we go through. And if they are as intended, then that would mean that we can put more resource into our more universal early help system. But for the moment, we do need to bolster, and those roles are built in going forward. And those will, the finances and the plan for that will go to the were the subject to scrutiny in November and will go to Budget Council in February.
Just say something briefly about the total respect. Yes, we are planning a session, particularly for the Corporate Parenting Board, and we are arriving at a date, which I think we've got a choice of two, and we're just waiting for the final confirmation. And then we will be asking Democratic Services to notify Corporate Parenting Board. It's not an it will be an extra meeting. It won't be a training session, which will attach to something. It will be an extra Corporate Parenting Board meeting.
I just wanted to ask as well. I mean, there's lots about this kind of percentages of people that I might have missed it, but just out of interest, what's the overall workforce in terms of social? I mean, how many people are we talking about in total in terms of social work within this? I'm not expecting an exact number, but what sort of number? I'm just curious. That's fine. And I was just wondering, because talked about sort of the change in the type of locum and agency workers and things like that. What I was sort of wondering is, what are the biggest challenges in terms of actually recruitment? Because you mentioned with a couple of posts, or I think it was either the apprentices and there was one of the senior ones, that there was quite a few applications. I think for one of them, I think it was either the apprentices that you mentioned, there are 50 applications and 12 recruited and things like that. Is the issue that it doesn't sound like the issue there's not enough people out there who want to do the jobs. Was that to do with quality, or is it to do with just the budget that we've got to recruit people?
I think nationally there's been an issue with retaining experienced social workers in some of the real kind of frontline teams, and it can vary in terms of the teams that you are working in. And there will be different challenges in recruitment, and I think that which is part of our reform, what we're doing under reforms, in terms of actually creating much smaller teams where practitioners will be able to work with children throughout their journey, which from a job satisfaction point of view and the relationships that you build, we truly believe and have seen in other areas makes a real difference. And makes a difference for children and also makes a difference for practitioners. Yeah, that is kind of underpinning what we're doing in changing our delivery model.
I think nationally there has been some research that the average lifespan of a social worker is 8 years. And so I think reflecting on it can be a really difficult job to do if you haven't got the right supports around you, which is why we are investing so heavily in making sure that our social workers have got the right conditions, they've got the right tools, they've got the right support in place that helps them sustain, long careers where they can build experience, because that absolutely helps families as well. So looking at how we can sustain and retain and develop our social workers so that they stay with us.
And I suspect it's probably not very easy to get, but do we have any evidence or data that what social workers that we've got outlived that 8-year life. I mean,
we do.
because I suspect some of them may go on to other jobs and carry on their career, but in other settings. But which is obviously a positive thing as well, because they're still contributing to the workforce in that way. But do we know that we're doing that better than the national average there?
So there is we weren't able to report on this last year's data because the report, but it's all publicly available information. That every, I think it's at the end of September, there's a national census of social work staff that we submit information to the DFE, and then they publish reports where we're able to benchmark in terms of attrition rates and the like. And I have the information that Charles, the additional information that was sought by Charles, that has been provided, gives an overview of years in post, the average years at Wokingham Borough Council, and per head count. And we can see that we've got a spread in terms of experience, but not uncommon to other areas. In certain roles and in certain teams, you're more likely to see people within a 5-year time frame of experience. And as with kind of all professions, sometimes people move into, kind of management roles or to ancillary support roles, so fostering, can go and work in adoption or qualify to add to their skill set. So we can provide that analysis and maybe in the next social care update, so that you've got that information. Everyone's got that information.
About social worker and the service from the social worker, as a Hong Kong migrant community here, and many Hong Kong social worker, former social worker in Hong Kong have many years of experience, and also they have the qualifications, but they still is finding the job as a social worker in UK is not easy. It's quite difficult. And we are not sure, maybe sometimes maybe the experience, and sometimes maybe the employer maybe have less confidence on them, but Hong Kong social worker actually is working very hard, and they may be English less fluent than the local, of course, and they know the many family, for example, the migrant family, including Hong Kong migrant family, a lot of because as a migrant, it's not easy, and always sometimes the people need to talk with social worker, and they want to find a service, but many Hong Kong people in the Hong Kong community in UK found that it's difficult to talk very easily to the social worker in UK because the language or culture and understanding. And so I think that is because Wokingham is almost one of the largest Hong Kong community in the UK is in Wokingham, and the Hong Kong social worker in UK is difficult to find a job, and if they have some opportunity to find a job, and I think they are very good to hardworking and very good to serve the immigrant community, and I think it's a good thing. And so then we can do something to recruit more social worker, not all Hong Kong, maybe also other kind of community, so that the service will be better, and it's more. I think it will be more easy to recruit enough social worker.
Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree in terms of needing to have a workforce that reflects the diversity of our local communities, and that's something that we, Estelle mentioned the space to talk about race group, which is working with our workforce in terms of making sure that our place of work in Wokingham is welcoming, and we have a space for everybody, to feel like they belong, and that's really important that we encourage that. Social work in the UK is a regulated activity, so you have to be registered with Social Work England in order to practice social work, but there are entry mechanisms for social workers from overseas in terms of being able to demonstrate conversion of their skill sets in order to, and qualifications in order to work in the UK. But that's different, I'm aware that that's different from different countries, and I haven't got kind of enough information, but we can find that out in terms of Hong Kong community, in whether the qualification is recognised in the UK. What I will say is that we also offer a range of other roles. So we have children's homes where residential social workers, we have personal advisors who work with our care leavers, we have early help workers, and we also are going to be employing family navigators within our family hubs. And it is precisely with that opportunity to give local residents opportunities to be part of our service, because they're very well placed to be able to support local residents in terms of access to services. So when we are going out to recruit, we can make sure that we are making sure that those adverts are going as widely as possible. And in ways that residents can access to make their applications.
Yes, thank you. And
yes.
I would like to share with you, Councillor, we have an educational psychologist. She was qualified in Hong Kong as an educational psychologist, very highly convertible. They have been British influence there, so a lot of things she learned there is very similar to we discovered actually very similar to what here. I just wondering whether I think that's something I can talk to my colleague in place when they work out a skill employment strategy. When we work out care, obviously is one of the highlighted area. What we need to focus on. If we can reach out to the community, probably they can share the experience, what kind of gap we can fill in terms of employment. Actually, yeah, we do have an educational psychologist join us recently, who qualified in Hong Kong.
yeah, thank you. Because I believe many Hong Kong social workers in UK, and it's difficult to find a social worker job in UK. But that is the kind of, we think is raise the talent and raise their qualifications. And I hope that it will be we could and promote more this kind of job to different kind of communities, so that and every talent can use. Thank you.
So I'm just trying to make sure I'm thinking straight. I'm looking at page 22 of the report, this language of healthy turnover, healthy attrition. The third table there, are we saying that
more than we're losing? Yep.
I'm just asking, what I'm saying is it like turnover of 50% if you employ 22 people, 11 leaves, more or less, in terms of You say here headcount 22 starters. I'm just saying, is that what you mean by healthy turnover? Because healthy for me will not be positive, will be positive, not negative.
I think in terms of the term healthy turnover, when looking at the reasons as to why people are leaving, if they're leaving for promotion or family reasons, that would be seen as a normal kind of rates and normal reasons and rationale. We have to monitor it quite carefully. There's a monthly meeting that is monitored. I think in terms of, I wonder whether there's a correlation between the leavers and the starters in terms of that tally, because the new people are coming in to replace the people who've left, if that makes sense.
Ultimately, though, it means that if you start with 2 people in a year, you expect 11 to leave. It doesn't matter if they are replaced or not. That means the turnover is very high.
So our attrition rates are 9%.
Okay.
Nationally, they are approximately 17%. So as a proportion of our workforce, that's viewed nationally as quite healthy, if that... yeah.
Looking at the report, there's quite a lot of professional development in there as well, and I wanted to see ask sort of how much of an impact do you think the sort of continuous professional development that they have is making on retention?
I think that the staff surveys and things that we do, the health surveys, the feedback from that is that the development opportunities in Wokingham are really, the support and development opportunities in Wokingham are really valued by the workforce.
Yeah, I just wanted to very finally I mean, I think there's lots of positive things that people have mentioned about the range of things that you're doing to support and, you know, and train staff as well. And I just want to, do we feel that we're leading the way in that sense compared to other local authorities? And if so, have there been times where we have been sort of sharing some of the things that we've done with other local authorities on a regional or other level, or is it just sort of we do things in line with other authorities? What do we think with that?
I think our ASYE programme and the development that we do there is very well thought of, and we know that people talk about that in the region. I think that we know that again, that kind of support and professional development we're thought of very well within the region, that people do come. And I think our systemic practice, again, you know, we've had people approach us because of our investment in systemic practice and approaches to practice, which has attracted people. So yeah, I think we are quite competitive in that respect, I think, yeah.
Thank you very much for all those answers to those questions. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the best start in life. So who's leading? Is that Lorna?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. My colleague Lorna will give you the detail. You have a report. Just one thing I would like to bring to your attention. When we have forward planning, we did put it as an early year strategy. But things have been evolving, as you know, from April this year. Every local authority in the country will get a family hub to be in place. In the past, only selected local authority with the funding, they have best start in life family hub, we call. So we want to have a more integrated approach. Early, obviously, you talk about from pre-birth up to 5 years old. The family hub, majority part of that, you talk about supporting family, particularly the one with most disadvantaged background to have best support from the very beginning of a child's life. I think that's why we evolved this strategy called Best Start in Life strategy. So no confusion here. The reason we bring it to here today, we really would like to share with you what Lorna been done. Lorna had reached out to various agency, practitioner, provider, parent, and actually co-produce this Best Start in Life strategy. We want member to notice the strategy and its priorities. I don't know whether Emma said something before. Lorna can give you more detail about Lorna.
We can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Are you on mute?
No.
Nobody's spoken.
Adam or Gillian, do you want to try and say something? See if it works for you.
Somebody speak.
Hello? No, we can't hear you.
It's supposed to be fixed. Shall I see if there's anything?
That was supposed to have been fixed.
If you just hold on, Lorna, we're going to try and get somebody from facilities to try and fix this problem.
Bear with us for a couple of minutes.
Let me. Do you want to try?
Lorna, try to say something, Lorna. No.
Can you speak?
So.
We can hear you, Gillian.
Hello. Did you find anybody, Estelle?
I have, and I've just found somebody, and they're looking on the computer in the main. Yeah, so they're checking on the computer now.
So I've got this. Oh no, that gives feedback.
Hello. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Let me mute
It's just a
us.
bit slow.
Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, good?
It's repeating. Hold on.
My next report whilst they're trying to... Yeah.
I'm going to hang up, Lorna.
Yes, sorry. Right, we're just going to move the agenda around slightly, so we'll hopefully come back to you, Lorna, in a second when we've got the technology working. Sorry to keep you waiting with it. Yes, Estelle, do you want to move? So are you going on the...
Yeah, so I think this report is probably last on the agenda, which is the update in relation to delivery of services by children's social care, so the social care update.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
So again, assuming that you've read the report, although the report, the main body of the report was presented to Overview and Scrutiny in September, with a further update in November. This is really just a brief update since that report in November. About our local reform programme, which has continued to progress according to the plan that's set out. In November, the proposed delivery model was agreed by the corporate leadership team, and we have just gone out to recruit to the family group conference roles. And we are looking to move into our formal staff consultation at the beginning of February, with a view to the new family help delivery model going live in April. So we really still are in that kind of programme of engagement and consultation with the children's workforce. We've been to the Children in Care Council to share that new model and got their feedback. We've submitted the Families First Delivery Plan Part 2 to the DFE, and that's setting out the progress that we're making with our partners too. So there's significant design activity going on across that partnership. Thames Valley Police are anticipating that the multi-agency child protection team part of the reforms will evolve from our current MASH, multi-agency safeguarding hub. And health partners too are looking at how they can align health visitors, school nurses, mental health practitioners directly to our family help model, with that kind of aspiration that that families will experience a single and coherent pathway of family help. So it's just really to say that overall the reform programme is continuing to move at pace, that we've got strong partnership engagement, and we're on track to be changing our delivery model in April, going live with our new delivery model in April. One thing that we are really happy about is that we have been selected as one of 9 national partner areas working with foundations, so the What Works for Children and Families. So we've received, we've been successful in that bid, and we'll be working very closely with the What Works Centre looking at evidence-based practice, because that really is it's a foundation really of the work that we're doing in the reforms. And alongside that, of course, our improvement activity continues. We know that we are in the Ofsted window for an ILACS inspection, So there's a lot of work continuing in those improvement areas, the audit activity and assurance work that we're doing is showing that we are improving in those key improvement areas, and we would be able to give you more of an update at the next panel when we have involved in that.
We had to demonstrate thinking around what we would like to develop for our family hubs and areas of focus, and we needed to demonstrate that we had robust governance systems to support that role, because that role, whilst it's a role for Wokingham, it's a role, and I think this probably leads to the earlier point about leading. It also is linked to evidence-based learning across the southeast, and the need to work with regional partners in relation to disseminating evidence-based learning, collating evidence-based learning. So we're part of a community of those 9 selected local authorities, but we were selected on the basis that we were in a good place in relation to knowing ourselves and our data, and the Marmot work really, I think, leaned into that, and evidence that there was a degree of maturity that had been developed that we were able to evidence in the bid. But really fantastic to have that role. That role is out for recruitment at the moment. So again, will be part of our leadership team in terms of working with others, working with the Institute of Health Equity, so linking sort of those public health elements with actually really being able to hone the delivery of evidence-based interventions. And we had some specific areas of focus that we want to develop in the context of our family hub development. So working with harder to reach communities and making sure that those families are supported, working with dads and developing our offer to fathers in the borough, and working with our care leavers who are parents. So those were sort of the 3 key priority areas that we spoke about in the bid, and are wanting to use this role to help kind of further our practice and our support for families.
Sorry if I missed this, because you said the data was presented in September. We've got a big, so page 76, we've got a big increase in child protection plans, up 68%. What's driving that, or is that just similar that it is being seen across the country? It's not us specifically.
It is being seen across the country,
yeah,
and regionally. But I think to be fair to kind of practitioners and to families in Wokingham, I think we have had more families experiencing pressure due to kind of growing cost of living crisis, and that can then have an impact on parental mental health, levels of violence in homes, and we analyse the data and profiles in relation to the particular safeguarding pressures that are being felt within families. This is all fed into the development of our preventative offer. The figure has, so from more recent analysis, these are kind of older. This is older data. We're just at the point of analysing Q3. The figure has come back down again and stabilised, but we are in line with statistical neighbours. But what we do know through links with statistical neighbours is that they have similarly seen rises across the region in terms of children who are registering for that threshold of support.
And then the last one was page 79. Funding anticipated to be significantly lower than that of other local authorities. It sounds like we've got great plans. Are those plans going to be compromised by lack of funding?
We are straining every sinew to make sure that that we are able to, where we've been able to make savings and efficiencies in other areas, be able to apply those to this improved system. And we think ultimately this will hopefully result in fewer children requiring, so there's a spend to save argument, and that's been articulated in the business case. But we are the lowest funded council in the country in relation to, I think, the fairer funding settlement, of which the grants, some of the monies to support the delivery of children's services are wrapped up in, but we have managed to clarify that the Best Start in Life grant is separate to core the CSP in terms of spending power. So working through that at the moment, but still know that we are, the figures in which the DfE have made their evaluation are from in adults it's relatively recent. The DfE in terms of children have taken stats from I think it's 2017, 2018, perhaps when Wokingham's data wasn't as robust as it is now.
A question I was asking, on page 81, is this a typo, practice and practice model? Page 81.
So we talk about the practice that people do, and then there's an overarching practice framework, a practice model that's referred to in, and that's what we were talking about earlier in terms of that whole system of support for practitioners in order to be able to practice. So it probably doesn't read very clearly, but
right. So this is just for emphasis then, or something?
Yeah.
Thank you for those. So we've got the dashboard in the second part of that. Is that usually Adam who's going to do that? Are we back on the line yet? Or?
It's Estelle.
Oh, are you still doing this, the second bit?
It's still
okay.
Actually, that has already been presented previously, so it's old. It is.
So the data for that is the same. The same as okay.
It was in the. Oh, sorry.
We can. Are there any questions on the dashboard? Bearing in mind we have seen that before, but are there anything else which has come to light from there?
I think mine was coming back to what we talked about. It shows an increase of complexity and just always being mindful around manageable workloads, I guess.
Yeah.
Is what that, yeah.
So having seen some of the Q3 data, there are improvements in certain areas because of the supernumerary staff. So making sure, particularly within our kind of referral and assessment service, that we've got sufficient staff to meet needs, and that's looking much healthier.
They can't fix it. We're going to have to get the technicians back. So what I would suggest is that although people will not be able to hear on YouTube, if we do what you did before and go through your computer, the committee will be able to hear it. Officers will be able to hear it. It's just the people on YouTube that will not hear it.
And we'll still be able to ask questions with our microphones on, will we?
You will be able to ask questions. She'll hear through the computer.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
So we'll just have a microphones on.
I think it will give feedback.
I don't think that was. Yeah.
Just have a microphones off for this.
So I just joined Teams again.
Yeah. Probably should say that again with the mics on, so that. Yep.
Okay, we're going to move back to item 60, which is best start in life. Due to some technical issues for anyone watching online, we're going to have to switch microphones off for this because we're getting some feedback from presenters online. So the minutes of the discussion will be recorded and will be available online after the meeting, but we are going to have to switch microphones off for this section. So I will now pass over to Lorna, who will present, and I'll switch my microphone off. just testing. Does this give lots? Oh, it's not too bad.
Thanks a lot for that, Laura. It's really comprehensive. If you look on page 13, it references half of 2-year-olds not accessing their nursery supports. And then on page 24, there are a lot of human contact points. But we know there are a lot of hard to reach families. How will we make sure they access those contact points to then increase the take-up?
I just had a couple of small ones. On page 20 on the outcomes, and I think this is presented slightly differently at the end, but it talks about the gap in good level of development between disadvantaged and their peers consistently narrows. I think that is an important point, but I think it's also worth recognising that for the outcomes you want them to improve as well, because I think, for example, if with disadvantaged children it's 50% and the others it's 74 or whatever, we could narrow it by the non-disadvantaged going down to 50%, but actually what we want is to raise the disadvantaged up to that 74%. So I think that is reflected slightly later on, but I wonder whether that could be reflected as well. It's about narrowing the gap, but also improving it as well, because it would also be better if they went up to 65% and the non-disadvantaged were at 100%. That would be better for everyone, even if the gap was wider. So I wonder whether that can be reflected somehow. My only other one was, I appreciate it might be a very general one. I know there's a huge amount of partners which have to involve in this, and I think one of the big challenges is probably how it all joins up, and I know there's a lot mentioned about the joined up thinking. Are there sort of really secure systems in place to make sure that all does happen? And what are those systems to make sure all those partners are communicating effectively?
I'm not getting an echo, am I, with feedback? We have, and I think the strategy mentions it, but I can't think on what page, in terms of the governance structure that we have to support. This strategy will report into our Health and Wellbeing Board. It reports into a Children and Young People's Partnership, at which key stakeholders are present, and will also be supported by a Best Start in Life steering group, which has, as well as key partners, key system partners, so public health being one of those, in relation to making sure that we've got that sign up, the regular reporting in relation to children's progress, and we are, I would say, a lot further in terms of our ability to triangulate and know what makes a difference for children and young people and for families. So, for example, I think yesterday we were looking at some like suspension data and looking at internal data systems that really help us understand those children's pathways, and lots of that, when you track back, starts in the early years, and helping us as a system to think, actually, what could that support have looked like differently to mean that actually that child or that family are not in that situation at this point. So there is an awful lot, there's a real connection between understanding our prevention and youth justice young people, because when you track back in their histories, often a key feature in terms of the support that those children need, which are typically in the midst of their adolescence, is speech and language support, therapy that should have been delivered much earlier and should have been identified in terms of helping those children articulate what they need, their needs are, be able to regulate and to so I think we've got, I think, some really developing maturity in terms of the understanding of our children, and the type of needs that present, that's helping us think about what support could have looked like in the early years to them and their families, that mean that hopefully in terms of that gap and the progress, we can narrow that and push further. We have had a Best Start in Life group that has been working for about the last 18 months to 2 years, that have had a focus on developing good levels of development, and they've had some success in that our overall percentage points have increased by I think it's 2 to 3%. Yeah. But you know, we mustn't be complacent, and ideally everyone would be 100%, like you say.
And I think it was really interesting to talk about reflecting on cases which further down the line you think, actually, how could we have intervened earlier on to make that better? I think one of the challenges which I think this sort of document outlines quite clearly is the challenge of reaching some of those people probably who most need it, and how whether it's lower income families or most vulnerable. Are you reflection on what that, say, a child who's had difficulties later on in life, you can reflect on what intervention they might have needed earlier on. Are we confident that with those ones we reflect on, we could have reached that family earlier on and actually contacted them? And do we know that we can do that with the families that we think we need to reach out to at the moment?
There are an awful lot of contact points in a small child's life between services and support. What we need to make sure is that feels accessible and non-shaming for families, and that there's an opportunity to have a conversation with another human being, and not necessarily that's something that our families have fed back, is that it's all very well having lots of information digitally, which suits some families, but the opportunity to talk about your child's development, talk about any worries that you might have, in a way that kind of is comfortable for parents themselves is really, really key. So I think we are we're confident in terms of the systems that we are now putting in place, the development of family hubs, based in communities, based around libraries where families are accessing services. We're linking with primary care networks, and the development of neighbourhood in the context of the NHS 10-year plan. So, and the other bit of innovation that we have been trialling is that our birth registrars have been basing themselves in our to-be family hubs to kind of break down some of those barriers, but also to make the process of registering children's babies' births much easier for families to access. And those registrations have been booked consistently, haven't they, in terms of families are making, and through that contact are then able to set that first foot through the door in terms of a place that should feel welcoming and supportive, and you can go back to if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling isolated, which is often kind of something that new parents can often feel. So a place to meet others and get support.
I've been in two minds as to whether to ask this or not. The strategy is quite reliant on parent volunteers. And is there a risk, and I hope not, that's really reassuring to hear.
Scared to speak. Okay. I was just going to ask, is there going to be a metric to standardize the GLDs across the different demographics?
So we have, as part of the Marmot analysis, and we are also undertaking a joint strategic needs analysis in relation to children. We are able to analyse good level of development across different communities with different profiles that helps us understand how we might need to tailor support differently. So we can provide our joint strategic needs analysis will come back to for overview and scrutiny, which will give some of that analysis about different children's profiles. So, for example, we know that there's a percentage difference between boys and girls in the borough. Girls in the borough, if you look at the headline data, are typically achieving a higher level of good level of development at the end of reception than our boys are. And that's quite interesting to have a think, and I think exactly as Lorna has said, you know, we need to be curious about that. So what is that? I mean, what is that about? What support can we, what additional support as a system, not necessarily the local authority, but this, as Lorna has said, this strategy takes in health providers, it takes in early years providers across the borough. So how do we collectively work together as a system to support parents, carers and our children to achieve?
Right, thank you very much for presenting that report, and thank you for all the detailed responses as well. So we'll move on now to the next item, which is now onto the item number 61, which is the education and send update. Gillian, are you reporting the first bit? Oh, no. Just bear with us while we get it sorted.
Sorry, Gillian, just one on the fluidity around Ofsted. How will that be managed? It makes sense, but do Ofsted have enough capacity to be revisiting bits of change to a report? Like, Have I missed something?
I was going to say, I think you mentioned that there was 2 schools which have been inspected under the new framework, but the reports are coming in the next couple of weeks, being published. Which schools are they which we're awaiting the reports on? Great, thank you. Perfect, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to
there's a process. Each service contribute to assessment. So any part fall through did not deliver on time, it will have knock-on effect on the overall 20-week timelessness. So through that focused piece of work, actually now we improved to over 70%. Previously, when we did a similar effort, it improved 1 month, 2 months, and then drop again. But this time, since August last year, it seems to stay on about 70%. So I would like to report back. So we'll continue that focus piece of work. It's very, very important. Our residents, they children need assessment. They will be assessed within a legal time frame. So, although nationally, it's hopefully below 50%, but let not good excuse was not to improve to about 70%. So that's timelessness. In terms of quality, yeah, because you improved timeliness, we shouldn't sacrifice quality by doing things quickly, actually not paying attention to what children's needs are. So we have introduced some new QA tool, the online QA tool, and we also carry out some very forensic, so multi-agency partners audit. In summertime, we did 45 cases. Those are sample of cases we want to see what the quality are. We have social care colleague input. We have a parent carer group input as well. In school, unfortunately, in summertime, because of exam period, we didn't have, we only have one, there not that many sample involved. But autumn term, we hope we get more involvement. As you can see, I think our quality also been improving. Using that tool, previously we described as good, now called silver. We have increased silver grade, 80% increase in silver plate, a 4% increase in bronze, but there are 4% decrease in plant grade as a significant gap. The still gap it been decreased, but we don't want any children who EHCP quality is our low quality. So it's a continual evolving sort of process of improvement. That's in terms of quality. Annual review is another area of interest. Parents and this group as well, they want to have great interest. Since last autumn term, you have already heard of how we put together a sort of who complement same team. So annual review is one area we pay attention to. It's also about timeliness and quality. So we have worked on backlog. We have a reduced backlog. There's still a lot of work to do. A huge number. I wouldn't say that it's an easy task we complete in one go. While they review the case, there are also new cases coming in the team need to deal with. But there's huge progress. As you can see, that in total we have nearly 2,470 EHCPs, 316 newly issues. Although the review not required, then we have plan review last year to review 615. And actually the number is huge, as you can see that. And I would like to report back continually. I think it is the area we focus on. Last time also, this panel, the committee is interested in need figure with specific ask about who actually not in education, employment, or training no need. Member would like to have breakdown of the cohorts. So that's what in your report, you to have the breakdown of the cohort, and also how that compare with national average and the Southeast average. For example, when you talk about young carer, young people for one reason or another, they have to look after the family member. The latest, you look at February 2025, we have 0.02% of young people actually they are in need. That compared to national average of 0.05, we are much less. But again, we want to support everyone. Southeast, 0.04, again, is more than working on. We're doing slightly better than them. And you look at teenage parent, again, we have 0.02, nationally is 0.1. So we are much, much lower again. Also, I think this is the group, probably we have more, although we are less than national average, but we still have chance, have young people who, because of illness, they cannot access to employment training. 0.28, although national average is 0.37 of it. So I don't want to read all those details. That is exactly what the member asked for last time. So any question from you?
So I know our NEET is below southeastern England, but the numbers February 24 to February 25 show a significant increase. And I know we're nearly February 2026. Are we hopeful that that's going to drop back down by February 2026? Because it's still, like, they're small numbers, but that's still over 4,000 young people, which feels like a lot of young people in my head. Sorry, Ming, I know this is my hobby horse.
Okay, yeah, I think it's a slight increase. And you look at the England's figure as well, it's also the trend. It's a national challenge, but again, it's not an excuse. Although we doing better than national average, there are still a lot of work to do, particularly for those choosing young people who are from disadvantaged background or in vulnerable situations. You look at all those core illness, teenage parent, young carer, etc. Those are the ones we put a great effort. Now we want to work together with our skill team in another department to work with them broader cohort young people. At the moment, we think we are targeting the right group, the vulnerable learner, although they are smaller. The total number you talk about 4,267, the general population. But we want to now to reach out as many young people as possible. There's still a lot of work to do. Yeah.
I just wanted to very briefly pick up on the on page 70. It was about the sort of the audit of the HCPs. I think you picked up on the fact that the Sencos weren't able to participate. I would have thought that would be quite a key group to have involved in that. Will they be able to participate next time you do the auditing? And do you think that what sort of difference do you think that will make to the process?
You're absolutely right, Chair. I think it's very, very important. All those people need to take part in audit. It has been processed that we just, well, not very recent. I think it's been put in place for over 1 year. So we're confident more agency, I think, will have more regular participation. So they do take a message. I think in the past we do have, because of competing priority, people can't take part. One example, Senko, because exam period, they can't do it. So we can, I think, we have learned from that. The other day we just discussed about how we can avoid even exam period, possibly we can find the right time, Senko make it still be able to do it. So we are learning from that. We actually, I just was told by my head of center, participation is getting better and better now. It's a journey.
Okay, thank you very much for both those parts of the report. So we move on to item 63, which is the forward programme. Sorry, let me just find it. Are there any comments on the forward programme at all? Or any suggestions of things that people might want to add in or see in the new municipal year, as we'll be starting to plan that soon. There are a few items at the bottom which we will schedule, which we've brought up in recent meetings. But is there anything else that people want to raise? No, I think our next meeting is quite full, certainly, anyway, and if there's things to add in for the other ones. Okay, in that case, we will move on to item 64, which is the action tracker. So, the education and send update breakdown of exams data. Have we had that with the breaking down the achievements and things like that? Has that become available? Because I think last time we asked it hasn't been published yet.
Gillian, I'm not sure if you heard the question. I think that was for you. So this is in the agenda, page 101. The chair was just asking about the breakdown of exams data. Page 101, the first bullet point there, to receive a breakdown of exams data to compare the achievements of children, young people with SEND and children who attract pupil premium against their peers.
Can I answer that? Yeah, we do you want to answer, Gillian?
Perfect, thank you. The next one is receive regular updates on the progress of improvement of EHCP reviews, which we've had in that, which is useful. And then I know there's dashboard items which will happen. We've got the next dashboard ones coming out. We've got this joint strategic analysis report, which we'll be scheduling in some of the forward plan, which we'll add in, won't we? To receive a result of investigations to find out the cause of increase in the number of child protection plans. I'm trying to remember who mentioned it. So it's to receive the result of investigations to find out the cause of the increase in the number of child protection plans. And then the other ones of the forward programme, which we'll schedule in for the next year, I think. Are there any other comments on the action plan at all that people want to raise? Okay, in which case we will move on to the next item, which is part 2. So exclusion of the public, so that under section 100A, part 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business.